In our last journey, we saw how the very paths of a village whispered the secrets of future unions. But once the church gave its silent nod and the parchments were signed, a new reality began to unfold. A reality you could touch, weigh, and hear. Behind closed doors, chests were opened to reveal folded linens, sacks of silver were tied with care, and livestock were led across narrow fields to their new homes. This was the material soul of a medieval marriage, the dowry. Tonight, we follow the trail of these objects as they cross the boundaries of families, carrying the weight of a shared future into the quiet corners of a new life. If you are listening at night, tell me where you are and what time it is. Welcome to Dreamy Old Stories, where we share slow and gentle stories from history. These stories are made to calm your mind and help you fall asleep. In the quiet arrangement of material exchange, the presence of objects begins to shape the outline of union in visible ways. Bundles of cloth are folded with care, their woven patterns catching faint light as they are placed together. Small sacks of coin rest with a certain weight, tied securely and kept close within reach. Beyond the house, livestock stand within enclosed spaces, their movement marking a different form of value. Even stretches of land, though not carried by hand, are included in this arrangement, described and measured with attention. These elements gather as part of a transfer that gives the union a physical form. To stand within this moment is to notice how these objects carry a quiet sensory presence. The roughness of fabric against the skin, the faint metallic sound of coins shifting within their pouch, and the low breathing of animals nearby create an atmosphere filled with subtle awareness. There is a quiet attentiveness in how each item is handled, as if its meaning extends beyond its surface. The air holds a mix of textures and sounds that do not draw focus individually, yet together they form an experience that feels grounded and tangible. As the process unfolds, these objects begin to move, guided by hands that carry them from one place to another. A bundle is lifted and passed across a small distance, received with a nod that requires no further explanation. Coins are counted slowly, not with urgency, but with care that ensures their place within the exchange. Animals may be led along familiar paths, their presence shifting from one enclosure to another. Each action contributes to a gradual transition, where what once belonged to one household begins to settle into another, shaping the direction of the union. From within, the meaning of these exchanges forms a quiet understanding that reaches beyond the objects themselves. There is a sense that each item carries a part of the household it came from, linking past and future through its movement. This awareness does not demand attention, yet it settles gently into thought, shaping how the union is perceived. The transfer becomes more than an act of giving, forming a connection that is felt through the presence of material things, each one holding a place within the unfolding structure of marriage. The exchange extends beyond a single moment, appearing in the careful arrangement of goods before they are moved. Inside storage spaces, items are gathered and set apart with quiet intention, forming small collections that reflect both value and purpose. Chests are opened to reveal folded garments layered one upon another, while shelves hold containers filled with grain or preserved goods. Tools may be placed alongside these items, their worn surfaces suggesting long use within the household. Each object is positioned with thought, creating an order that allows the exchange to unfold with clarity rather than confusion. To observe this preparation is to notice how the senses become attentive to the smallest details. The soft sound of cloth being adjusted, the faint creak of wood as a chest is opened, and the subtle scent of stored goods create a setting filled with quiet activity. Hands move slowly across surfaces, pausing briefly as if to confirm the presence of each item. There is a calm awareness in these movements, where touch becomes a way of understanding what is being offered. The atmosphere feels deliberate, shaped by a quiet focus that gives each object its place within the exchange. As time moves forward, the arrangement begins to guide the sequence of actions that follow. Items are selected in a particular order, carried outward one by one, each movement building upon the last. A garment may be lifted first, followed by smaller objects that accompany it, creating a flow that feels considered rather than random. The process unfolds without interruption, yet each step brings a slight change in the space, as areas once filled become gradually cleared. This progression marks a transition, where preparation gives way to movement, and the exchange begins to take visible form. From within, this stage of arrangement carries a sense of quiet readiness that shapes how the exchange is understood. There is an awareness that each object has been chosen with care, not only for its material value, but for what it represents within the household. This understanding does not need to be spoken, yet it is felt in the way attention lingers on certain items before they are moved. The exchange becomes a reflection of the household itself, expressed through the objects that are prepared to leave its space and enter another. The movement of these goods continues along narrow paths that connect one household to another, forming quiet lines across the landscape. A small group may carry items together, their figures spaced out as they walk, each person holding a part of the exchange. Bundles are balanced on shoulders or held close to the body, while animals are guided at a steady pace beside them. The path itself becomes part of the process, marked by repeated footsteps that shape its surface over time. This journey does not draw attention, yet it gives the exchange a visible direction, linking places through the steady movement of objects. To walk within this procession is to notice how the surroundings respond to the presence of movement. The sound of feet against the ground creates a soft rhythm, joined by the occasional shift of weight as items are adjusted. The air carries the scent of earth and nearby fields, blending with the materials being transported. There is a quiet coordination among those involved, where pace is shared without instruction. Even brief pauses along the way feel purposeful, allowing the group to continue without strain, shaping the experience through a balance of effort and ease. As the destination draws closer, subtle changes begin to appear in how the exchange is carried forward. The pace may slow slightly, not from fatigue, but from a growing awareness of arrival. Hands adjust their hold, ensuring that each item is presented with care as it reaches its new place. The path widens or narrows, guiding the final approach, while the figures ahead begin to take on clearer form. These small shifts mark the transition from movement to arrival, where the exchange prepares to settle into its next stage. From within, this journey creates a sense of connection that extends beyond the objects themselves. The act of carrying becomes part of the meaning, linking those who move with what is being given. There is an awareness that the exchange is not only about transfer, but about the path that brings it into being. This understanding settles gently, allowing the movement to feel like an essential part of the union, shaping how the objects are received and remembered once they reach their destination. At the moment of arrival, the exchange takes on a new shape within the receiving household, where objects are placed with quiet attention into unfamiliar spaces. A bundle is set down upon a wooden surface, its form briefly held before it is opened. Coins are transferred into a container already prepared to hold them, while livestock are guided toward enclosures that differ slightly from those they have known. Each item finds a place within this new environment, not through haste, but through a measured process that allows it to settle gradually. The The household absorbs these additions without disruption, adjusting its arrangement to include what has been received. To witness this transition is to notice how the atmosphere carries a mix of familiarity and quiet adjustment. The sound of objects being placed, the shift of footsteps across the floor, and the soft movement of animals within their new space create a layered experience. There is a sense of attention in how each item is handled, as if its placement holds meaning beyond its function. The air feels slightly altered, shaped by the presence of things that were not there before. This subtle change does not demand recognition, yet it can be felt in the way the space is used. As time moves forward, these objects begin to influence the rhythm of the household in small but steady ways. A tool brought from another place may be used alongside existing ones, creating a slight shift in how tasks are performed. A piece of cloth may appear in daily use, blending into routines while carrying its origin quietly within it. Livestock may adjust to new patterns of care, shaping the movement of those who tend to them. These developments unfold gradually, allowing the exchange to integrate into the flow of life without drawing attention to itself. From within, this process of receiving creates a sense of connection that extends beyond the immediate moment. There is an awareness that each object carries a link to another household, bringing with it a presence that remains even after the transfer is complete. This understanding does not interrupt daily activity, yet it settles gently into thought, shaping how the exchange is perceived over time. The union becomes visible through these quiet additions, each one contributing to a shared life that continues to take form. After the arrival and placement, attention begins to settle on how these objects are used within the flow of daily life. A garment that once rested folded in a bundle is now worn during ordinary tasks, its fabric moving with the body as work is carried out. Coins that were counted with care are now part of quiet transactions, passing from hand to hand in moments that require no ceremony. Livestock become part of the routine of feeding and tending, their presence shaping the rhythm of morning and evening. Each item enters use without announcement, becoming part of the ongoing pattern of the household. To experience this stage is to notice how the senses begin to adjust to these additions in subtle ways. The texture of a new fabric against the skin feels slightly unfamiliar at first, then gradually blends into the feeling of daily wear. The sound of animals within their enclosure adds a new layer to the familiar background of the home. Even the weight of coins in a pouch carries a quiet awareness when they are handled. These sensations do not stand apart for long, yet they leave a trace of recognition, marking the presence of something that once belonged elsewhere. As days pass, the distinction between what was brought and what was already present begins to soften. Objects move through different parts of the household, finding new roles or combining with others in ways that were not planned. A tool may be used alongside another, creating a new pattern of work, while a piece of cloth may be altered to suit a different purpose. These small changes unfold without direction, guided by the needs of daily life rather than by intention. The exchange continues to shape the household, not through a single moment, but through ongoing adaptation. From within, this blending creates a sense of quiet continuity that feels both natural and meaningful. There is an awareness that the exchange has moved beyond its initial act, becoming part of the life it was meant to support. The objects no longer stand apart as symbols, yet they carry their history within their use. This understanding settles gently into thought, allowing the union to be felt not as something separate, but as something woven into the everyday experience of living together. As time continues to move through the household, the exchanged objects begin to take on quieter roles that are less visible yet still present. A piece of cloth may be set aside after long use, folded and stored in a place where it will not be needed for some time. Coins may gather in small amounts, no longer counted as part of a single exchange, but as part of ongoing life. Livestock may age, their presence shifting from active use to quiet familiarity within the space. The physical presence of these items changes over time, reflecting a gradual movement from introduction to quiet belonging. To notice this stage is to sense how attention toward these objects becomes softer and less direct. The touch of fabric no longer carries the same awareness it once did, blending into the background of daily experience. The sound of animals, once distinct, becomes part of a wider pattern of familiar noise. Even the handling of coins feels less marked, as their presence is absorbed into routine actions. The senses adjust in a way that allows these objects to settle fully into the environment, no longer standing apart, yet still shaping the experience in subtle ways. As these changes continue, the objects begin to mark the passage of time within the household. Signs of wear appear on surfaces, edges soften, and materials shift in response to repeated use. A garment may show faint traces of repair, while tools carry marks that reflect the work they have supported. These developments do not interrupt the flow of life, yet they quietly record it, linking the present moment to the earlier exchange. The process unfolds gradually, allowing the objects to carry a history that remains visible without needing to be spoken. From within, this quiet aging of exchanged items brings a sense of continuity that connects past and present in a gentle way. There is an awareness that what was once newly received has now become part of lived experience, shaped by time and use. This understanding does not call for reflection, yet it lingers beneath the surface, offering a sense of depth to the union. The exchange, once marked by movement and attention, settles into memory through the objects that remain, carrying their meaning forward in quiet and enduring ways. The place where the ceremony unfolds is shaped by simple arrangement rather than display. A small open area or the interior of a modest church gathers a few people into a shared space, where attention settles naturally toward a central point. The ground beneath carries marks of earlier footsteps, while walls or surrounding trees create a quiet boundary around those present. There are no elaborate decorations, only the placement of people and the subtle alignment of their bodies. The setting feels prepared through use rather than design, as if it has held many such moments before. To stand within this gathering is to notice how the atmosphere forms through soft layers of sound and presence. Voices remain low, blending with the faint movement of clothing and the occasional shift of weight. The air carries the mild scent of earth or wood, depending on the setting, and the closeness of others creates a shared awareness that moves gently through the group. Each person becomes part of the experience through their quiet attention, contributing to a sense of togetherness that does not require expression. The moment is felt through proximity and listening. As the ceremony begins, small actions guide its unfolding in a steady sequence. Two figures step slightly forward, their movement drawing the focus without breaking the calm of the gathering. Hands are positioned with care, gestures performed with a familiarity that suggests they have been carried out many times before. Words are spoken in measured tones, each one placed with intention, followed by pauses that allow them to settle. There is no rush from one step to the next, only a gentle progression that carries the moment forward through quiet action. From within, the experience of the ceremony brings a sense of recognition that feels deeper than the moment itself. There is an awareness that this joining is part of a pattern that extends beyond those present, shaped by many who have stood in similar spaces before. The gestures and words feel known, even to those who are experiencing them for the first time. This understanding does not call for reflection, yet it settles softly into thought, allowing the ceremony to feel both immediate and connected to something that continues beyond it. The arrangement of people within the ceremony forms its own quiet structure, where each position carries meaning without being announced. Those who stand closest to the couple hold a subtle importance, while others remain slightly behind, creating gentle layers of presence. The officiating figure stands facing them, forming a small center of attention that draws the gaze without effort. Children may linger at the edges, shifting lightly from one place to another, while elders remain steady, their posture reflecting familiarity with such moments. The spacing between bodies creates a natural order, shaping how the ceremony is seen and understood. To be among these gathered figures is to notice how attention moves without direction, flowing gently from one person to another. The sound of breathing, the faint rustle of fabric, and the quiet clearing of a throat become part of the shared experience. There is a softness in how people hold themselves, as if the moment invites still awareness rather than movement. Eyes remain focused yet relaxed, taking in small details such as the positioning of hands or the subtle change in expression. The atmosphere carries a sense of calm observation, where each presence adds to the whole without drawing focus. As the ceremony continues, slight shifts in posture and attention begin to guide its progression. A witness may lean forward almost imperceptibly, or someone at the edge may step closer, narrowing the space between observer and moment. The officiating voice rises and falls gently, signaling transitions without abrupt change. The couple responds through small movements, adjusting their stance or turning slightly toward one another as words are spoken. These changes unfold gradually, allowing the ceremony to move forward through a series of quiet adjustments that feel natural and unforced. From within, the arrangement of people creates a sense of belonging that extends beyond individual roles. There is an awareness that each person contributes to the moment simply by being present, forming a shared experience that holds the ceremony together. This understanding does not require acknowledgement, yet it shapes how the moment is felt. The union becomes part of a larger gathering, supported by the quiet attention of those around it, allowing the ceremony to exist as both a personal and collective experience at the same time. The gestures within the ceremony begin to draw quiet attention, shaping the moment through small and deliberate movements. Hands are brought together with care, not as a sudden act, but as part of a sequence that has already begun through words and presence. A piece of cloth may be placed lightly over joined hands, or a simple touch may be held for a brief time before being released. The positioning of fingers, the angle of wrists, and the closeness between two figures create a visual language that speaks without sound. Each gesture carries a place within the ceremony, forming a pattern that unfolds through movement. To witness these gestures is to notice how they are felt as much as they are seen. The warmth of another hand, the gentle pressure of contact, and the awareness of being observed create a layered experience that moves quietly through the body. There is a softness in these moments, where touch is neither hurried nor prolonged beyond what is needed. The surrounding space seems to narrow slightly, drawing attention inward toward the point of connection. Even those standing at a distance can sense the shift as the focus gathers around this shared action. As the ceremony progresses, these gestures begin to lead into one another, forming a sequence that carries the moment forward. The joining of hands may give way to a slight turning of bodies, or to a spoken response that follows naturally from the action. Each movement prepares the next, allowing the ceremony to continue without interruption. There is a quiet flow to this progression, where no single gesture stands alone, but each contributes to the unfolding of the whole. The actions align with one another, creating a rhythm that guides the ceremony toward its conclusion. From within, these gestures bring a sense of connection that feels both immediate and enduring. There is an awareness that meaning is being expressed through touch and movement, not only through words. This understanding settles gently, allowing the moment to feel complete in a way that goes beyond what is spoken. The joining of hands becomes more than an action, forming a quiet expression of union that is carried forward within the experience of those involved. Within the unfolding ceremony, the spoken words begin to take on a central place, shaping the moment through their careful delivery. The officiating voice moves through familiar phrases, each sentence carrying a structure that has been used many times before. The couple responds in turn, their voices quieter, yet steady enough to be heard by those gathered nearby. The exchange is arranged in a sequence that feels balanced, with each line followed by a pause that allows it to settle. The words do not seek to impress, but to confirm, forming a spoken pattern that guides the ceremony forward. To listen during this exchange is to notice how sound fills the space in a gentle and measured way. The tone of each voice remains even, shaped by the need for clarity rather than emotion. Breath becomes part of the experience, marking the spaces between phrases and giving rhythm to the speaking. There is a softness in how the words are carried, allowing them to reach without force. Those listening become aware of how each sentence holds its place, supported by silence before and after, creating a calm flow of sound that feels steady and composed. As the words continue, subtle changes begin to guide the ceremony toward its next stage. A phrase spoken by one is repeated by another, creating a connection between voices that had been separate. The sequence of speaking moves closer to its end, with each response completing a part of the exchange. There is a gradual sense of progression, where the language builds upon itself, leading toward a quiet conclusion. These shifts are not abrupt, but unfold through careful pacing, allowing the ceremony to move forward without breaking its calm rhythm. From within, the spoken exchange creates a sense of certainty that settles gently into awareness. There is an understanding that the words, once spoken, hold a place that cannot be easily undone. This realization does not draw attention to itself, yet it shapes how the moment is felt. The language becomes part of the union, carried forward in memory and understanding, giving the ceremony a presence that continues beyond the space in which it was spoken. As the spoken exchange settles into completion, attention begins to move toward the quiet acknowledgement that follows, where the ceremony shifts from action to recognition. The officiating figure may step slightly back, allowing space to open around the couple, while those gathered adjust their posture in response to what has just occurred. There is no sudden signal, yet a shared understanding moves gently through the group. The arrangement of bodies loosens, creating a subtle change in how the space is held. This moment does not introduce anything new, but allows what has already taken place to be quietly received. To experience this shift is to notice how the atmosphere softens in a way that feels both calm and complete. The sound of voices may return in low murmurs, blending with the faint movement of feet or clothing as people begin to relax their attention. The air carries a sense of release, though not in a dramatic way, but through a gentle easing of focus. There is a quiet warmth in how individuals look toward one another, sharing brief glances that acknowledge the moment without needing words. The experience settles into the senses as something that has been fully carried through. As this acknowledgement unfolds, small actions begin to mark the transition from ceremony to continuation. A step forward may be taken, or a hand briefly extended in greeting or support. The couple may turn slightly, shifting their orientation toward those gathered, while others begin to move in closer. These movements do not interrupt the calm, but guide it into a new phase where the ceremony becomes part of ongoing interaction. The sequence continues, not through formal steps, but through natural adjustments that carry the moment outward. From within, this stage brings a sense of quiet completion that feels both clear and unspoken. There is an awareness that something has been formed and recognized, held within the shared experience of those present. This understanding does not require confirmation, yet it settles gently into thought, shaping how the moment is remembered. The ceremony becomes part of a larger flow, carried forward through the quiet acknowledgement that connects it to everything that follows. After the quiet acknowledgement, the space begins to open into a gentle dispersal, where the structure of the ceremony softens into movement. The gathered figures no longer hold their earlier positions, but begin to shift in small directions, forming new groupings within the same space. The central area that once held focused attention becomes part of the wider setting again, no longer marked by a single purpose. The couple stands within this change, no longer set apart in the same way, but gradually becoming part of the surrounding arrangement. The environment adjusts without instruction, guided by the natural flow of people. To remain within this moment is to notice how sound begins to return in quiet layers, shaping a different kind of atmosphere. Low voices emerge in brief exchanges, carrying tones of familiarity rather than formality. The soft movement of footsteps, the faint brushing of fabric, and the occasional shared breath create a sense of gentle activity. The earlier focus gives way to a broader awareness, where attention is no longer held in one place, but moves lightly between individuals. The senses register this shift not as an ending, but as a widening of experience. As time moves forward, the ceremony continues to influence these interactions in subtle ways. Conversations may include brief references to what has just taken place, though they are spoken simply without emphasis. The couple may be approached by others, not in a single line, but through a gradual gathering that forms and disperses. Small gestures, such as a touch on the arm or a quiet word, begin to replace the earlier formal actions. These changes unfold naturally, allowing the moment to extend into the flow of life beyond the ceremony itself. From within, this transition creates a sense of continuity that connects the ceremony to everything that follows. There is an awareness that the union has moved from a defined moment into a living presence within the world. This understanding does not demand attention, yet it remains quietly present, shaping how the experience is carried forward. The ceremony does not feel separate from what comes next, but becomes part of an ongoing rhythm, where its meaning continues to unfold through the lives it has joined. The shared household begins to take shape through the arrangement of its physical space, where each area holds a purpose that supports daily life. A central room gathers activity, with a hearth positioned as a quiet point of warmth and use. Nearby, simple furniture is placed with practical intention, allowing movement to flow around it without obstruction. Storage spaces hold tools, vessels, and folded cloth, each item kept within reach of where it is needed. The boundaries between areas are not marked by walls alone, but by how the space is used, forming a layout that reflects the joining of two lives within one setting. To move within this space is to notice how the senses adjust to its shared nature. The sound of footsteps carries differently when more than one person moves through the same room, creating a gentle overlap of presence. The warmth from the hearth spreads across the space, blending with the faint scent of cooking or stored materials. Light enters through small openings, shifting across surfaces and revealing the placement of objects throughout the day. There is a quiet awareness in how each part of the space is experienced, shaped by the presence of another without needing to be acknowledged directly. As time passes, small adjustments begin to guide how the space is used and understood. An object may be moved slightly to better suit shared access, or a tool may find a new place that reflects changing routines. The arrangement is not fixed, but responds gradually to the needs of those who live within it. These changes unfold without disruption, carried out through simple actions that reshape the environment over time. The household becomes more defined through these movements, as each adjustment brings the space into closer alignment with shared living. From within, the experience of this space creates a sense of quiet familiarity that grows steadily. There is an awareness that the household is forming not through a single moment, but through repeated use and gentle adaptation. This understanding does not call for attention, yet it settles into thought, shaping how the space is perceived. The joining of lives becomes visible through the environment itself, expressed in the way the household supports both presence and routine within a shared place. Within the shared household, attention begins to settle on the repetition of daily routines, where simple actions give shape to the space over time. Morning tasks unfold near the hearth, where one person prepares food while another arranges tools or gathers water. The sequence of movement becomes familiar, with each action finding its place within the flow of the day. Surfaces are used and cleared, objects lifted and returned, forming a quiet cycle that continues without interruption. The household is defined not only by its structure, but by these repeated patterns that give it a steady rhythm. To experience this routine is to notice how the senses begin to recognize its subtle variations. The sound of utensils meeting surfaces, the warmth rising from cooking, and the shifting light across the room create a layered awareness that changes gently throughout the day. There is a quiet coordination in how these elements come together, allowing the space to feel active without becoming overwhelming. Even the smallest detail, such as the placement of a cup or the timing of a task, contributes to a sense of balance that is felt rather than explained. As these routines continue, slight changes begin to appear, shaping how the household adapts to shared living. One person may take on a task that was once done by another, or a sequence of actions may shift to better fit the flow of the day. These adjustments do not interrupt the rhythm, but refine it, allowing the routine to evolve naturally. Over time, the repetition becomes more aligned, with each movement fitting more smoothly into the next. The household grows into its pattern through these small developments, guided by use rather than decision. From within, this repetition creates a sense of comfort that settles quietly into awareness. There is an understanding that the household is sustained through these ongoing actions, each one contributing to a larger continuity. This awareness does not require reflection, yet it shapes how the space is experienced. The routine becomes part of the shared life, allowing the domestic space to feel both familiar and gently shaped by the presence of two lives moving together within it. Within the shared household, attention begins to move toward the way individuals adjust to one another through small, everyday interactions. The space between actions becomes as important as the actions themselves, where one person pauses to allow another to pass, or shifts position to share access to a surface. These moments are not planned, yet they shape how the household is experienced. The placement of hands, the direction of movement, and the timing of tasks begin to align in subtle ways, forming a pattern of interaction that supports the shared use of the space. To be present within these interactions is to notice how awareness moves gently between self and other. The sound of someone approaching, the slight change in air as another body passes nearby, and the quiet recognition of shared presence create a layered experience. There is a softness in how attention adjusts, allowing each person to remain aware of the other without interrupting their own actions. This balance is not spoken, yet it is felt through the ease with which movements are coordinated, creating a sense of connection that is carried through simple, everyday moments. As time unfolds, these interactions begin to guide changes in how the space is used. A path through the room may become more defined, shaped by repeated movement that avoids unnecessary overlap. Objects may be placed in positions that allow both individuals to reach them easily, reflecting an understanding that has developed through experience. These adjustments emerge gradually, not through instruction, but through the quiet recognition of shared needs. The household begins to organize itself around these patterns, allowing interaction to shape its form. From within, this process creates a sense of shared presence that feels both natural and steady. There is an awareness that the space is no longer experienced alone, but through a continuous exchange of attention and movement. This understanding does not stand apart from daily life, yet it influences how each moment is perceived. The domestic space becomes a place where connection is formed through interaction, allowing the shared environment to reflect the quiet balance of two lives moving together. Within the shared household, attention begins to gather around the quiet rhythm of work that repeats across days, shaping how the space is lived in over time. Tasks unfold in familiar sequences, where one action leads naturally into another, creating a pattern that settles into the structure of the day. A surface is prepared, used, and then cleared again, while tools are lifted and returned to their places with a consistency that builds quiet order. The repetition is not rigid, yet it carries a steady flow that allows the household to function without interruption, giving form to the shared life through ongoing activity. To move within this rhythm is to notice how the body begins to anticipate each step before it fully arrives. The hands reach toward objects almost without thought, guided by a growing familiarity with their placement and use. The sound of work blends into a gentle pattern, where each movement contributes to a continuous flow of quiet activity. There is a sense of ease in how actions follow one another, shaped by repetition rather than decision. The experience becomes less about individual tasks and more about the feeling of moving within a sequence that is known and understood. As this rhythm continues, small variations begin to appear, adjusting the pattern in response to changing needs. A task may be completed earlier or later than before, or a different order may be followed for a time. These changes do not disrupt the overall flow, but allow it to adapt, creating a balance between consistency and flexibility. The household responds to these variations in a way that feels natural, allowing the rhythm to shift without losing its sense of continuity. Over time, the pattern becomes more refined, shaped by both repetition and quiet change. From within, this ongoing rhythm creates a sense of grounding that settles gently into awareness. There is an understanding that the household is sustained through these repeated actions, each one contributing to a larger sense of stability. This awareness does not draw attention to itself, yet it shapes how the space is experienced. The domestic environment becomes defined not only by its physical form, but by the rhythm of work that moves steadily through it, connecting each moment to the next. As the shared household continues to take shape, attention begins to settle on the quieter moments between tasks, where the space is experienced without clear purpose. A bench near the wall may hold someone for a short rest, or a doorway may frame a brief pause as one person watches the other move through the room. These moments do not interrupt the rhythm of work, yet they reveal another layer of the domestic space, where presence is felt without action. The arrangement of the room allows for these pauses, offering small places where time can slow without stopping entirely. To sit within these moments is to notice how the senses become more aware of subtle details that might otherwise pass unnoticed. The warmth of the air near the hearth, the faint shifting of light across the floor, and the distant sound of activity outside create a quiet background that fills the space. There is a softness in how the body rests, supported by surfaces that have become familiar through use. The experience feels gentle, allowing attention to move freely without being drawn toward any single task or object. As these pauses continue to appear throughout the day, they begin to influence how the household is understood. A moment of rest may lead to a brief exchange of words, or to a shared silence that carries its own sense of connection. These small intervals create space for interaction that is not tied to work, allowing the relationship between those within the household to unfold in a different way. The domestic environment adapts to include these moments, shaping itself not only through activity, but through the spaces in between. From within, these quiet pauses bring a sense of ease that settles gently into the experience of shared living. There is an awareness that the household is not only a place of tasks and movement, but also a space where presence can be felt without purpose. This understanding does not require attention, yet it shapes how the space is perceived. The domestic environment becomes a place where both action and rest are held together, allowing the shared life within it to unfold with a quiet balance. As the household continues through its days, attention begins to gather around the way time leaves its quiet marks upon the space. Surfaces that were once newly arranged begin to show faint signs of use, where repeated touch has softened edges or altered their appearance. A place near the hearth may darken slightly from continued warmth, while a well-used path across the floor becomes more clearly defined. These changes are not sudden, yet they shape how the space is seen, allowing the passage of time to become part of the household itself. To notice these marks is to experience a subtle awareness that builds through familiarity. The hand resting on a worn surface feels a difference that is difficult to name, yet clearly present. The eye begins to recognize patterns in how objects age, observing small shifts in color or texture that develop slowly. There is a quiet satisfaction in this recognition, where the senses begin to understand the space not only as it is, but as it has been shaped through repeated living. The experience feels grounded, connecting present moments with those that came before. As time continues, these signs of use begin to influence how the household is cared for and maintained. A surface may be repaired, an object adjusted, or a space reorganized in response to wear. These actions do not return the household to an earlier state, but guide it forward, allowing it to adapt to the effects of continued use. The process unfolds gradually, where care becomes part of the rhythm of living, shaping how the space evolves alongside those within it. From within, this awareness of time and change brings a sense of continuity that settles gently into thought. There is an understanding that the household is not fixed, but grows through the accumulation of lived moments. This realization does not interrupt daily life, yet it adds depth to the experience of the space. The domestic environment becomes something that carries its own quiet history, shaped by the presence and actions of those who share it.